You think of supply chain, people typically think of the movement of goods, and it's the actual only movement from the raw material supplier to the four-wall facility, and then outside of the four-wall facility to the customers, or the last mile. And it's all of that. It's the movement of goods. However, I think what people often forget is that it's also all of the planning that goes behind it, all of the forecast planning, the logistics planning, and everything behind it. So it's the movement of good, but all of the activities that go behind that to make sure that it happens smoothly and seamlessly. The ways that we've seen AI in supply chain today have been in two key areas. One is the digital twin, and secondly is the process automation side of supply chain. For the digital twin aspect, which is just a fancy word of saying it's a digital replica of what the actual physical movement of goods is, and it's digitizing that so that you can run scenarios off of it. And so AI allows you to expedite the actual creation of the digital twin, as well as run scenarios off of that. And scenarios could be what if or next best action. So let me give you an example. If we have a disruption at a port, let's say there's a strike, or the outbound port of a country there's a strike there, or they're holding goods. You can then say, well, what is this going to do to my inventory, either on the water, at my current locations, and then how does that impact my end customers? And so with this digital twin, you can forecast out the scenario of the California port they're on strike. I have to route everything around to the East Coast. How does that impact what I have today? And do I need to expedite? Do I need to reallocate inventory within my network? And if your hands are tied, it's which customers do I need to then inform that I won't be able to deliver on time, and what can I do for you? And with this also comes the next best action that I talked about. So in the situation where you have this digital twin, you can run my next best action scenario. You could say, well, I have a tariff that I have to impact. I can do one of two things. I could increase my price and then figure out what the elasticity sensitivity is to my customers, and what is that doing to my demand. Okay, I know my demand is going to decrease. How does that then translate down to my factory is now going to be at 90% utilization? My cost per unit is going to go up because I'm not absorbing the fixed cost. Or I could say I'm going to keep my costs the same. What is that going to do with my margin? And then how do I then optimize it to say, can I redistribute my supply chain and my raw materials to a location with lower raw material costs? And so with your digital twin, you can do all that seamlessly, whereas historically and even currently for a lot of our clients, they're doing this manually. This takes probably 2 to 3 weeks, whereas with the digital twin, it takes less than a day. With the process automation piece, it's one of the largest benefits that we see with clients. I think we heard one of the keynote speakers here at MLC talk about 85% of the manufacturing activity come from companies with less than 500 people. These people are doing a lot of manual processes today, which includes a lot of order taking. And so if you think about the overall process, and a lot of these companies, they have big blue chip clients and they have small clients or small customers. Some people may call up on phone, some people may send email, maybe they have customer portal, maybe they have EDI. However it's coming in today, it's a manual process. And so with AI, you can aggregate all of that to then be put into your system. And if you think about it, that's step one. But the Toyota production system is the gold standard of how people should communicate. What AI does is it allows automation from end to end and offers us bilateral communications so that you can say, supplier, I saw something upstream, it's coming down, probably reorganize or reforecast your demand because we just had a canceled order here. And so by automating all of these processes, you no longer have what we call swivel chair activities, and you can then go back and say, all right, I now got a signal that says my demand is going to change. I'm going to then look at that, reforecast what I have in my current inventory, translate that back to my suppliers to say, hey, demand just went up, down, 10%. Therefore, we should reallocate orders, your production, your labor, etc., and plan it both from the front all the way to the back. I think the biggest concern that we have with AI is around trust and explainability. If you think about it, right now, a lot of these individuals have been in seat. They've been in seat for 15, 20 years. They have a degree. They have the battle scars, so to speak, to prove. And then you have this AI thing that's brand new, that hasn't taken tests, hasn't really done training, and it's going to now circumvent to do the same job. And so, how do you then say, all right, well, I'm going to explain everything on these decisions and do it rapidly as AI does it? And so you have this risk of now figuring out how do I then, if this AI engine makes a mistake, what do you do? Currently today, maybe someone gets fired or they get retrained. In the future, if they can't explain what happens, it's going to be pretty hard to be like, what do I do to retrain it? Additionally, is when you think about running a 5 why process on an AI engine is almost impossible for an operator. So then you have to get the operator involved, you have to get the data scientist, you have to get the technology team involved, and that's just a shift of mindset. And so now having to explain it, test it, and then prove it out is going to be a change of mentality for people. And I think having that trust and explainability is going to be critical, but it's also a big concern. The other thing that when we think about as far as a risk is setting expectations for AI and threading the needle on how fast you go and how big you go. Right now, AI buzz is huge and everyone wants to match that. However, when you think about matching that, it can be this large, grandiose plan that if you don't achieve it, it's a failure. And then if you go too slow, it's also a failure. People want to see results, deliver results very quickly. And so now if you were to go back and with that same thing, I have this big AI ambition, AI buzz, and I'm going to start small. I'm going to start small and win. Well, AI is big. I want big. And so when you think about how all of this transpires, you have to thread that needle to set expectations, to win in the very small areas and continuously build off of that. And that's hard because you have the C-suite saying, I want big results, I want value. And then you have the lower level say, I don't have the data, I don't know where to drive value, I don't know how to start. And so when you take that and meld this together, you have to thread the needle to make all stakeholders happy and then have the plan to be successful. We need to start defining what the goals are. I think we heard yesterday that 2/3 or more of individuals don't have AI goals. And so if you don't have goals, it's hard to measure success against it. And we start to see people getting lost. And so it's this big broad thing, oh, we don't have the data. I think we heard multiple people yesterday say we don't have the data. I have yet to find a company that I've worked with over my 10 years plus of consulting in the industrial space that does not have ample data to start. And so just having a phone call or a discussion with the right people can get you to start. I think that it's harder to start, or it's more difficult to think about starting than it is to just start. And when we think about it, it's more of taking the first step of what is the goal that I want to achieve and where can I show a quick win. Because even in my in advisory, it's like the show versus tell. I can tell you about advisory, I can tell you about AI, I can tell you about performance improvement, but once I show you with your data, in your environment, with your operators, seeing is believing. And so just starting small and showing that there is value and then putting targets against that is what a lot of companies should start doing. Because as we said, there's a lot of small companies and there's a lot of value to be unlocked. Just need to start with the data that they have. It's imperative to set clear targets. I think we heard that there were a lot of individuals or a lot of companies who don't have targets for AI, which means that there's not really a measure of AI adoption or value that's driven through AI. And so, what gets measured is, or what gets managed is, what gets managed is, or what gets measured is what gets managed. And so if you think about that, AI has a lot of opportunity to drive value in the organizations for both achieving top line revenue and reducing bottom line cost. And so if you're not then measuring it, it's really hard to then hold people accountable to then deliver on what they said they were going to do and deliver on the outcomes of AI. And so you need to start with setting the targets and then setting the value expectations that it will drive. We heard yesterday that 70% of the companies within MLC don't necessarily have a value associated with AI, which I think we need to change. It needs to change in a way where there is tangible value to be delivered to a P&L. And so when you start to translate that, you start to get people behind and have a cross-functional approach to reduce the costs and ultimately improve the bottom line. The one takeaway I have for people leveraging supply chain, the one takeaway I have for people leveraging AI in the supply chain is start today. There's a lot of value to be unlocked, and if you think about the broader aspects of it, you become quicker, smarter, and better with AI. And so starting today is going to help you on the 5-year journey of getting to where you want to go and achieve your goals.